There's nothing I love more than a desk picture. I mean, that's not really true, but like for the purposes of this intro, let's say photos of people's desks are a few of my favorite things.
Like creme brulee, sex, desk pictures.
That's when the dog bites.
Yeah.
When the bee stings. Just send me photos of your desk. Then I'll be feeling glad.
They make me really anxious.
Why?
Why? My desk has never been ever, even after it's immediately been cleaned, tidy enough that I would feel comfortable sharing a picture of my desk on the internet.
I don't want to judge, but
no, you should.
I have seen your desk.
It's a disaster.
And man, there's a lot going on.
Look, I come from a long line of messy desk people. My dad's a messy desk person. My grandfather is a messy desk person. My other grandfather also was a messy desk person.
This just means you're too busy working and doing stuff to tidy.
But now I'm looking at everybody's really nice, clean, minimalist bullshit desks, and I'm like, fuck, man, I could see 4 gamepads from where I'm sitting. There's like, I got a Wii U gamepad right over there.
You don't have a set of drawers?
Oh, I don't have drawers for
I
that
also
stuff.
have at least 3 controllers here, but they're all in a drawer under my desk.
Well, my drawers.
Oh no.
My middle drawer, the one that I use the most, has like the most commonly used tools. It has like wire snips and needle nose pliers and wire strippers and stuff like that.
You've got a maker desk.
Yeah, the one on the left is a bunch of notebooks. It's like all my empty notebooks, and then also my back notebooks, my project notebooks.
I feel like if you're making at that desk, it's a different conversation.
Yeah, but I mean, I do everything at this desk. I eat, I sleep, I solder, I work. I have Brad, I have a pound of dice right here. They're right there.
Just in case.
They're all sorts of weird shapes too.
In case you need to arrive at some random numbers, you've got it covered.
Look, my daughter wanted some of my good dice, and I was like, "Here, I have these dice that I got for game purposes years ago, and you can have any of these you want because they're not matchy."
You just have to exercise discipline. I was like you until about 2-3 years ago. And then at some point I realized, hey, it's way better for my mental health to have a nice tidy area to work in. And so,
well, I mean, the other problem I have is that I have a bazillion cables here because I have like,
you got to hide that stuff.
Where the hell am I going to, it's impossible.
Attach
I can't hide
it to the back. Do you know how much stuff I have out of sight here?
I mean, you do. Your desk it's a nightmare. I walked into your office one day. I was like, what do you ever use this room?
A nightmare. To clarify, you mean a nightmare of tidiness and purity, right? Because there's nothing on this desk.
I know I feel like it looked like a room that no one had ever been in. You know how you go into some people's houses in the South and they're like, oh, this is our dining room. And it's clear that the only time they eat there is Easter and Thanksgiving and maybe Christmas.
It's a layer of dust on the china.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought your desk was one of those.
Still got the protective plastic on your new sofa.
Crinkle, crinkle.
I have got, behind this desk where you can't see, I've got my NAS, which is a full mini ATX, micro ATX.
Yeah, that's fine.
Full tower. I've got mounted to the back of my desk. I've got my router, a network switch, two surge protectors.
Okay.
I've got my UPS under there behind the drawers. Okay. I've got 2 external hard drives that I use to back up my NAS to.
Okay.
Underneath the desk, I've got my USB mix amp, the volume control for my speakers, all mounted, a headphone hook.
Wow.
I got stuff everywhere. You just can't see it. It's just the amazing invisible desk setup.
So part of my problem, I think, is that instead of using like a traditional IKEA type computer desk with like a flat surface that you can screw stuff into the bottom, my desk is a 50s or 60s era kindergarten desk.
Oh no.
That I put tall legs on. So it's like a huge surface and it has 3 drawers in the front and it's exactly the right height for me. Like when I took the short little kindergarten legs off and put the big legs on, I cut those legs to be exactly my height. But the problem is I don't have a place to screw stuff in underneath. I was looking at racks the other day.
Okay. Now you're talking.
Because I was like, look, I could put the streaming machine in the rack. I could put the mixer in a rack.
I see a printer in the background of your webcam right now.
That's Gina's printer, but I do use it.
Regardless of the ownership of the printer, that printer could go in a rack. Get a rack,
I don't think the printer could go in a rack.
Organize.
I don't know. The printer doesn't, it needs to have the wings to go in the rack.
You either need to get a rack or you need to commit to sticking screws and nails into that desk because you need to mount some stuff.
Well, no. It's not that I can't put the screws in. It's that if I do, then the drawers won't work. And the drawers are an important part of the desk.
I don't have a solution.
These are the
for
problems.
You. Yeah. Yes.
These are I'm just going to keep doing my current scheme.
Well, hey, you've got plenty of time to sit at that desk and ponder a new layout. So,
I mean,
I expect a report by next week.
How are your monitors doing?
Fine. They're mounted on arms that don't contact the desk. My coffee is sitting directly underneath the monitor right now because the monitor hovers in midair.
That's the other problem I have is that I have, instead of having a dual arm monitor, I have 2 single arm monitors, and I haven't bothered to put up the second single arm monitor because like it's a pain in the ass.
Tidy your space, invest in yourself.
I don't want to, I'd rather invest in something else. Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
Brad, hello.
Hi, Brad. I almost messed up the tense there, and this is the 43rd episode.
Wait, which tense?
I almost said make a test pod.
Okay. Oh, I thought you were talking about like maybe for your introduction, like I was Will.
Did I say test or did I say tech?
I used to be Brad. I'm sorry. What are we even talking about at this point?
I'm really like, I was up late last night. That's pretty much it.
That's easy to do these days.
I'm sleepy.
Yes.
Yeah. Like for a while, my daughter has gone full nocturnal. She's just like 10 o'clock. She's still raring and going. She's like, yesterday she got an Animal Crossing upgrade on her house. She's like, Dad, I'm going to make 750,000 bells today so I can upgrade my house tonight. I was like, I don't think that's possible.
She's really,
but you know what? Go for it.
Putting her summer vacation to work. We're still in the summer window, right?
Look, it might be summer vacation forever the way the state of California is going right now.
Does she have any obligations at all? Like, you guys?
Normally, like last year, she did 4 different summer camps and like played soccer and had sporting activities. This summer, she's played 600 hours of Minecraft, I think was the last thing that the Switch told me.
Okay,
so yeah, shit's going great over here.
Yeah.
It's terrific.
Well, yeah. Got to do what you can right now.
Yeah, it's social. Yeah. She has to go play outside for a little bit before she gets to play Minecraft. So there you go.
Yeah.
I don't think it's actually 600. I think it's like 100 hours just for the record, but still it's a lot for a 7-year-old.
I would have believed it. Yeah, that's pretty much, yes, that's the title of this episode.
How do you denote that one? Is that like a tired sigh? I don't
know. That one sounded pretty guttural. I think there would be some G's and H's in there. There's like there's a Klingon aspect to the way that one came out. All right, what are we?
Welcome to our new ASMR Sightcast.
What are we talking about this week?
Well, let's talk about tools.
Yeah,
and I'm not talking about the president of the United States.
That was your idea for this episode, and I wasn't quite sure how we were defining tool. But then you made a list of some of your ideas, and I kind of got a sense for it.
So in this context, I think of a tool as something that is not like a major software product, right? Like not an Adobe Creative, not something you find in Creative Suite, nothing you find in Microsoft Office, nothing that Google puts in Google Docs.
Not an application necessarily. Well, I guess it kind of could be, but not like you said, not a suite, not something that you pay an annual subscription for.
So, some of these things are what Alton Brown on Serious Eats would have called unitaskers, right? Okay. Like the things that you do that do one thing really well, and since they don't take up
purpose built.
Yeah.
Kind of okay. I get sure. Yeah. Okay.
It's the kind of stuff that made me excited about using the Mac during the Intel switch, when like developers were coming back to Apple and they were building all sorts of weird BSD apps that had like a OS 10 skin on them to do all the weird shit, like iPodder X, right? Okay. Like a tool that only exists to take MP3 files from the internet and dump them onto your spinning hard drive MP3 player.
God, I'm already sitting here thinking of ones that I didn't think of before. That, like, how about Better Touch Tool? For for OS 10, or excuse me, Mac OS.
I don't know what
which,
that is.
It just lets you bind keyboard shortcuts to mouse buttons.
That sounds great.
Which means
That's
that
perfect.
I put Command H on mouse 4 like 8 years ago, and now I can hide Windows like a mother.
So as with the tech horror stories, part of the reason I want to talk about this is because people always have a bazillion of these, and I bet most of us haven't heard of most of them.
This is I never thought about this. This is a very self-serving use for this podcast, is to like seed an idea out there just because we want suggestions and then get people to tell us.
Look, we share the suggestions. Everybody benefits,
that's true.
right?
That's right.
We're the conduits for information, Brett. Don't undersell that value.
We're trying to democratize good ideas here.
Yeah, like the point is, why have one brain work on something when we can have a few thousand brains work on something? And we all benefit as a result. So with that in mind, I made a short list of things. Like I put Firefox on here, which is a pretty big application at this point.
Yeah.
But I've
also
switched,
pretty well known.
Yeah, everybody knows that. But like the switching process, which I did last year, I was worried about. It's not been as bad as I expected. The only real problem is that Google apps were kind of slow for a while, but they seem to be running much better now. So like Gmail was a little chunky when I first switched over compared to Chrome, but I got used to it, or Firefox improved something, or Google stopped doing their bullshit. So like that's the only big one I have. One of them I have is Mouse Without Borders, which is a Microsoft thing.
I think we touched on just a little bit recently.
It is like if you're familiar with Synergy, basically it's a software KVM. So if you have two computers with two monitors on your desk and you only want to use one keyboard and mouse for them, you can run this on both of the Windows machines, and then the mouse moves seamlessly from one monitor to the other. You can even like copy and paste files and clipboard stuff and things like that.
Is it? I guess the name implies this, but is it a screen border based thing? Like, is that how essentially you activate the switch from machine to machine? Is just mousing past the
it's just like it's a two monitor situation.
It's not a hotkey thing. It's not like I hit like
you can do that
command shift whatever to switch to the other. Okay.
So if you want to do hotkeys, you can. I do the mouse drag just because of the way my monitors are laid out.
Okay.
You don't have the kind of granular control over where the borders are on your monitor like you do with the Windows multi-monitor setup stuff. But like if I move my cursor past the left edge of my screen, it goes to my streaming PC.
How fast, or like, is there any perceptible kind of transition delay? Or
I was playing games with the mouse. So I also have a hardware switch on my computer for switching back and forth between the input between the two computers. So sometimes and it works both ways, which is weird because like Synergy, you had to have the mouse on one computer and it would work on the others. But if you had a mouse on the other computer, it didn't work the other way. This one does work both ways. And I played games on the gaming PC across the Mouse Without Borders connection and not noticed before.
You're talking about once you've I'm talking about the transition back and forth. Like, is there any like
instant?
Really? You don't notice any, like, it doesn't have to like negotiate a connection with the other one for half a second or okay.
Yeah, no, there's no lag. If you're on Wi-Fi, especially if you have crappy Wi-Fi, it could be a little slow, I would bet.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw people complaining about that on the GitHub.
And you said you can literally drag a file across and just drop it and it copies?
So you can't drag and drop a file, but you can copy and paste a file. So if you copy a file in File Explorer and drag it over, it handles most stuff. Clipboard stuff copies, like text copies over, which is awesome if like, because I don't often have one password running on the secondary PC, so I can grab a password on the main one and copy it over. I'm sure it's opening a massive number of security holes, but since my home network is pretty locked down, it's I'm not too worried about it.
Sure. This is from the Microsoft Garage.
Yeah, it's not Power Toys. I think I said it was Power Toys a few weeks ago. It's just a thing that this dude has been working on for like 20 years now, 15 years now.
Oh wow. This almost makes me wish I had two Windows machines. This sounds incredibly useful. It
is what I wanted Synergy to be without 90% of the jank. The only thing I don't like about it is if you're playing games that are windowed full screen, you can roll off the edge of the monitor real easy.
I can see
but I think that happens with multi-mon setups too. So it's not.
Yeah, Vinny and I were complaining about that in Astroneer just yesterday. It's very easy to like accidentally click something in your OBS window because the cursor just goes flying out of the game screen.
Oh no.
Yeah. But,
so I just set up hotkeys and I turn it off when I'm playing a game and turn it back on when I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah.
This sounds incredibly useful if you've got a setup like you do where you're streaming from a different machine.
It is It is well, but I mean, when I'm streaming, I'm usually playing a game, so it is less useful.
Yeah, it's harder to. Yeah.
If I'm doing a maker stream, like I did a Fusion 360 stream last week where I was building the lid of my Mister case, and it was awesome to be able to switch back and forth between working on Fusion and going onto the chat and all that stuff.
Yeah. So obviously you need 2 full PCs for this to make sense, but that sounds pretty awesome if you are in that situation.
I assume a lot of people right now have like a work PC and their personal PC on their desk. And if you're allowed to put third-party utilities on your work PC, this would be a handy thing, I think.
Who's going to stop you?
Well, sometimes the man, they don't let you.
Yes, the IT man.
What you got, Brad?
Do you want to talk about text syncing? Because I've got that on my list, and it sounds like you maybe have a better replacement.
I have a new thing.
Okay.
I don't know if it's better.
Okay. So I've been using Simple Note for a very long time.
Yeah, I use that for years and years too.
I mean, it is as the name implies. It's as, if you don't know what it is, it's as simple as can be. It is literally just like a cloud-based text syncing. It's just a place to store text.
And you can even use like Dropbox and stuff for that, right?
Can you? I don't know.
Well, maybe not. They have their own protocol, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's right. But I haven't looked in a while. Excuse me. I should have checked, but last time I looked, so like you said, they have a protocol, they have an API, so people can build their own apps around it. And the app situation is not good. Like you can use the web-based stuff, and that's okay. But if you want,
is it still like notational velocity is the best thing?
Notational velocity. There's a fork of that called NV Alt on Mac.
Of course, there is.
They're both not great. Like notational velocity, I think, was abandoned in 2012 or something like that.
Oh boy!
Like it's a very old app. Like I'm actually amazed that it still runs. Let me see. Let me just look and see when the last release was. So
the thing about Simple Note, when I stopped using it because it seemed like it worked way better on Mac and iOS than it did on Windows.
Yes, 2011 was the last release of notational velocity.
Wow.
Yeah, like there are some Windows clients, and like no offense to any of the authors of those clients, but none of them have really done it for me.
Yeah.
There's just not like there's not a good local solution for Simple Note that I found. If you don't want to use the web-based tool.
Like this is so you're using this instead of something like OneNote or Omni, a mind mapper or something. Like this is like I need my task list is in here.
Yeah,
and
I just need to get you some. Like there's not a lot of fancy formatting on it. It's not like Google Docs where you're basically working with like a Word doc or whatever. It's literally just like raw ASCII text, right?
It supports Markdown, right?
Probably does actually now that I think about it. But like I don't use it that way. It's like a scratch space,
Yeah.
It's like I would not write a document for like business consumption in this. This is just a place to jot stuff down.
Yeah,
get to it quickly.
It's a dumping ground for words where Dropbox is it's like it's a bag of holding for words where Dropbox is a bag of holding for files.
Yes. And like the cloud service is fine. Like the core Simple Note service is fine. I just can't find a good client for it.
I think is it free still?
At least for like basic usage. Yeah. Huh. But anyway, sounds like you've got ideas.
Well, so there's this new thing. It's not new. It's newish called Gitbook that is for the purpose you're using, like creating notes for yourself and having buckets to put those notes in. Seems pretty good. I just started using it the other day, but it's basically a text editor kind of text. Like I think it was originally made to be a document creation tool for like open source projects and stuff like that. But because of that, you can generate. It supports Markdown. You can generate containers that you put a lot of buckets, a lot of stuff in, and it imports from everything. Like you can hook it up to your Google account and it'll pull in Google documents and stuff like that and ingest them and then generate PDFs even for you. It may be overkill for what you want, but the web client was pretty good on desktop. I haven't tried it on mobile yet. And like the formatting and typography and stuff were pleasant enough that I didn't want to jab my problem with a lot of these things is that you end up with like a monospaced or an unpleasant typography situation.
Sure.
So that it's hard to read what you've written if you write like an actual, like I often will do the first draft. Like when I was using Simple Notes, I would often do the first draft of a blog post in there and then copy it over to the WYSIWYG.
Yes. That is exactly the kind of thing that I would use that for.
Yeah, and this handles that well, and it's very readable compared to it's not that like in the typography Hall of Fame, there's media for the web. There's Medium, which is chef's kit, like so fucking good. And then this is in the same kind of general ballpark. Like it handles bad breaks and stuff like that so that you don't have weird typography situations.
I suspect somebody listening to this is probably saying, why don't you just use Google Docs for this type of thing?
It's too heavy.
Yeah.
And you can't find anything. Yes. Like the search is bad.
Yes. Being unable to find anything. Like, is it just me, or is the Google Docs interface absolutely abysmal and has always been for as long as it's existed?
Well, and like, so if I have a Google Doc I'm actively working on, I'm usually afraid to close it because if it falls off of the recent view, I can't find it again.
Right. And like maybe there, if I should check right now, I'm sure there are like sorting options that make that a lot more intuitive. Right. But
sometimes they just don't sort right though. Like,
yeah,
like it's a for a company that's generally pretty good at search, like searching within Google Docs sucks. And it's consistently terrible.
It's crazy to me. Like we use it a ton for my day job, and we've used it quite a bit for this podcast.
Yeah.
And it's been garbage the entire time. Like spreadsheets, docs, whatever. Like, did you share that with me? I think so. Like, where is it? I can't find it in this list. Oh, if I sort by last opened.
Here's a fun one. If you want to move a file into a different folder from inside the doc, you want to do like a save as, and I want to put it in the TechPod folder. It took me 20 minutes to figure out how to do that last night because I made this note, the notes that we're looking at right now, outside of the folder. And I was like, shit, how do I get them in? I can't drag them. And then I realized there's a little icon up near the name that says move, and that's how you do it. You have to click on the icon.
Of course.
It's not in the menus.
Just click the icon.
Dopey. Anyway. Google Docs and like OneNote kind of does that, but it's real heavy too. It takes a long time to load. Like I want something that I can just leave kind of in the background and pop up at any moment.
That's why I like Simple Note, because if you have a good client, like it syncs with their service and you just pop it open and jot stuff down, whatever. But like,
yeah,
it is a very imperfect situation. But anyway,
you want to talk about shortcuts? Do you like shortcuts?
Sure. You love use them all the time.
Have you used shortcuts for iOS much?
Ever since Windows 95, been a big fan.
Oh, it's not that kind of short.
I have some stuff to say about Windows shortcuts too, but we'll get to it.
That's a whole. So Apple, with the last version of iOS, I think it was the last version, might have been two versions ago, added this app called Shortcuts. That's a thing you can download. It's not installed by default, but it basically exposes a lot of the scripting interface.
Really?
And API stuff that like it gives a human interface to APIs that live inside other apps. So, for example,
I'm sorry, real quick. Did you say this is made by Apple?
This is an Apple app.
What?
I think they bought it from somebody.
Okay. Still, it just doesn't seem like the type of thing they would typically expose to the user. It's very un-Apple like to give you any kind of control like this.
Well, I think it was. I can't imagine what the rationale for releasing it was, other than they bought the company and wanted to have that functionality. But it lets you do. So, for example, before Siri supported third-party audio utilities like Pocket Casts or Spotify, I made shortcuts that let me trigger playing the Giant Bombcast or playing a Spotify playlist from Siri, like while I was driving in the car, which was awesome. I even made driving to school to drop my daughter off that gave me the ETA to her school, opened up the route in Waze, started playing some music, and gave us the daily weather. Right.
So these are like macros, basically, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah,
like a sequence of actions that you encapsulate into one thing.
Well, but there's some pretty big ones. Like there's some pretty like there's a Pi-hole one that somebody shared in the Discord a few weeks ago called Pi-hole admin that basically when you run it pops up a menu that lets you choose between and also any of these shortcuts can either be a Siri trigger or you can put them on the home screen. So you can just tap on it just shows up like a normal app and you tap it and you get like a menu. Oh, yeah, I don't know if you will see that, but
interesting. And can these be shared? Like you made it sound like somebody. Like when you said somebody posted one in the Discord, like can they kind of be exported and shared with people? Or
I clicked a link and it was on my phone.
Wow.
Yeah, and this one. So this one tells me the Pi-hole status. It lets me disable blocking from an icon on my home screen.
Dude, what?
It lets me allow or disallow domains. It lets me reboot the Pi-hole. It gives me stats and tells me if it needs updating.
I'm going to the App Store right now to download this. I'm assuming this is not installed by default, right?
Not installed by default, or it wasn't
Dude.
the last time when I did it. Like I have one that lets me see travel plans in TripIt. I have one that is like, I have one that runs my home automation stuff. So like I have a sleepy time one that turns off all the lights in the house when I'm ready to go to bed.
How have I never heard? This sounds incredible. This feels like it's going to open up the entire iPhone experience for.
Hey Siri, say cheese. And it just took a picture. There you go.
There's that sigh again. Wait, apparently I have this on my phone?
You probably downloaded it. There were a lot of stories about it when it came out. And then like, if you were like me, you didn't look at it until you were like waiting. I was waiting to pick up my daughter one day. I was like, what does this thing do? And I made the Waze shortcut. I was like, this is pretty good.
Man.
I have one that's like on my way home that texts Gina and is I mean, this doesn't apply right now because I never leave the house, but back in the before times, it texts Gina and is like, hey, do you need me to stop at the store and pick anything up? I'm going to be home in about 20 minutes. And because it gives the ETA from Apple Maps and then opens up a Waze route home.
Pretty easy to set up shortcuts.
It's not quite idiot proof, but it's real close.
Okay.
I mean, the penalty for failure is real low too. So
like, I'm wondering how that Pi-hole shortcut works in terms of like what app it interfaces with. Does that go through Safari? Like, can you basically set up like,
so it looks like I think it's
webpage, like input this text or activate this link type stuff?
It's either activate links or like, so on that one specifically, you have to set up some scripting stuff when you start it.
Okay.
Like you have to tell it where the, like you have to initialize a few variables. You have to tell it what the URL is. You have to give it your Pi-hole password and stuff like that.
Okay.
But then, yeah, it runs commands over SSH to do the following and returns.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess it has script. It has, yeah,
some simple scripting stuff.
It has some simple scripting stuff.
Man, that's cool.
And but the neat thing is, you can see how it all works because it has like because it's just a visual script. It says, okay, to disable blocking, you choose from the menu how long to disable Pi-hole is the prompt, and then you choose 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. And you read the number from the feedback on that, and you store that as a value, and then you and then it passes that to the actual function that sends the command back to the Pi-hole.
I'm extremely excited about this.
It is a incredibly powerful app for some really specific things.
Yes.
So
I live to automate and shortcut extremely specific things, actions, tasks. So I'm going to spend some time with this.
When you hook this thing up to your nut server, shit's going to pop off.
Oh, the nut server is totally automated. That's that thing.
Well, I mean,
the thing has a mind of its own.
Wouldn't it be nice to be able to, like, if you need to just shut everything down real, like you need an emergency, crash override?
You mean if I want to issue a UPS Mon-C FSD?
Yeah, I'm just saying if the 5.0 comes banging on your door and you need to burn everything down,
that's right.
Then you hit the button and run, right? You jump out the window.
I totally could shut everything on this UPS down remotely like that.
There you go.
Just tap the thing. Yeah, that's wild. I am shocked that Apple makes something like that available, quite frankly.
Me too. Hey, good for them.
But again, yeah, I mean, on the other hand, a couple weeks ago, we kind of talked about this new, more open Apple, right? So,
look, new, more app open is it's everybody's jam.
It's true.
These days.
I like it. I'm very into it. Let's see. Where do you want to go from here?
I feel like we both use Voicemeeter. We could talk about that.
No, I do not. I'm afraid of Voicemeter. Everyone I know both swears by Voicemeter and swears about Voicemeter. And so
I learned something really important about Voicemeter a couple months ago that has changed my outlook on it. Because it used to be like Voicemeter is a software audio mixer. So it works like a big Yamaha deck on your desk, except it lets you set up virtual inputs and outputs that hook directly into the Windows sound system.
Right.
It also will let you convert standard Windows audio APIs like MME and WDM, Windows Driver Model, WDM, to the lower latency ASIO. I think that's ASIO. I don't know how people say that. But the kind of music APIs that are both closed source and license encumbered, so they don't ship with Windows. But they're used for music production. So like if you have a high end mixer or something like that, then it'll have an ASIO interface because that gives you very low latency for the audio. The thing I learned is if you're using Voice Meter with a WDM or MME output, it's going to be janky. And if you use it with an ASIO output, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the TLDR.
All right.
Also, Focusrite interfaces maybe not the best.
I just uninstalled the Focusrite software this morning, so probably.
I mean,
probably fine.
You can't beat the price.
That's true.
It's a thing where you get what you pay for. So the use case for Voice Meter is even if you're not streaming, you can do things like have keyboard shortcuts for volume changes on Discord that are independent of your game audio, but are mixed in with the game audio, right? So that like you can change the volume, like you can use your keyboard shortcuts that you set up in Voice Meter to do things like that. You can also do things like automatically duck when somebody else, like if somebody's talking in Discord, you can duck your game audio so you can hear them better.
That sounds all right.
You can do things like, I feel like you can do a little bit of compression depending on the input you use. So if you want to like not MP3 type compression, but like squinching the dynamic range of the file so that more of it's being used of the audio, so that more of it's being used, and maybe you're not blowing out your ears as much if you're playing a loud game. And that's pretty much it. Like it's a handy. It's like pointers for your sound system in Windows.
It sounds amazingly useful. The thing that's always stopped me is just my inherent wariness of anything that installs at kind of a device or driver level.
It installs at a scary level. Yeah.
Like it's creating a bunch of, for people who haven't used it, it's creating a bunch of like virtual audio devices basically alongside your actual hardware audio devices. And that, irrational or not, is just a little unnerving to me.
So the thing that's good about it for me is that with the 2 PC streaming setup, it literally saves me from having like 6 extra cables.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
But also there's 3 versions. So there's Voice Meter. This is MEETER. The stock one only has a limited number of virtual inputs and outputs.
Is that banana?
No. There's stock. There's banana, which has 4 hardware ins.
I didn't know there was
2
one below
virtual
banana.
ins and 2 virtual outs.
I didn't know there was one below banana. How did they not attach a fruit to that one?
I think I don't think they come up with the. Yeah, I'm curious how that naming scheme evolved. Actually,
there's Voice Meter banana, and then I know where you're going with this. There's potato, which is the advanced version.
And I like fundamentally, I don't think there's any difference in any of these except for the number of inputs and outputs they support.
I think potato just has way more V cables.
You also can do some weird stuff like. You can hook 2 voice meters to each other and pipe audio over a network with relatively low latency, like 50, 100 milliseconds.
Okay.
So that if you want to have like audio from one PC going to another PC without running a wire, you can do that. And you can even do things like pass commands. So like you can mute Voice Meter on another PC using a hotkey on the PC that you're using.
Ooh.
And you can get real buck wild with it is what I'm saying, I guess.
I also love hotkeying things that you would normally have to dig through 8 menus to get to. So
there you go.
I can't get enough of that stuff.
Yeah, Voice Meter seems like it'd be your jam.
Yeah, maybe I'll find my courage sometime and actually be brave enough to install it. On top of the weird like driver level stuff that it installs, just the setup itself seems pretty imposing. Like it's a whole lot of keeping track of things. Like Vinny showed me one of his notebook pages where he had to graph out his virtual audio setup because it just seems like it would take a lot of work to really exploit.
Well, so the thing I didn't realize for a really, really long time, because they don't make it clear at all, is that you can label all of the inputs and all of the outputs.
Yeah.
So that like, you know, which one is your microphone and which one is your game audio, which one's your Discord and all that.
It's just, like we said with the desks, you just have to exercise a certain amount of organizational discipline.
Look, my audio setup is fucking immaculate.
Your physical space is a disaster, but your virtual audio space
jack me in, man. I don't need
pristine.
Fuck meat space. I don't need that.
Yeah. I've got I guess since we're talking about audio stuff, I've got another little applet.
That's a good segue, Brad.
Yeah. That's called Sound Volume View.
What does this do?
It is a way to basically expose all of the the audio sources in Windows in a very tidy, just like very like here it is kind of list. Like, so it's
like when you have a mystery sound on your computer, you can open that thing up and see where it's coming from.
Let me pull it up. Like I've never taken the time to fully understand everything this thing is doing, but I'm just going to read off of the types column here. Here are the types of audio sources this thing exposes. Okay. There are devices, which are your hardware devices.
Okay.
There are applications, which are things like Chrome and Firefox and Audacity.
I'm downloading this right now.
There are subunits, which I'm not sure that I can explain. And then, God, this is hard. This would be easier with a visual aid. It presents a fucking insane amount of information about all of the audio things going on in your computer.
Okay. I'm afraid to install this while we're recording a podcast because that seems like a bad idea.
Well, it's not an install. It's just a portable. It's just an executable that you run.
Oh man, you can download this from Major Geeks. That is the home.
Well, so the author, you should get it from the author's website, because I was going to mention that the guy who wrote this seems to have basically made a career out of writing little freeware applets for Windows.
I love these.
The website is nirsoft, nirsoft.net.
Yeah. Oh, I know something else he does.
Right. Yes. So when I came upon this, and there are some other reasons that I like it that I'll get to in a minute, but I thought that I thought this whole thing sounded familiar. Like,
is this the Windeer stat guy?
I don't think so, but he definitely names all of his applications that way.
Holy cow.
I don't think he made. No, but it looks like he made an equivalent called Folders Report.
Yeah.
So if you go to nirsoft.net and click, are you there?
I'm there.
Now click all utilities on the left.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
And scroll that list.
Oh, he did that. I've used his Recover Office Windows CD key tool before.
Like, he's got a bunch of tools on here for like getting your product key out of various Microsoft applications.
Oh,
like there are dozens to hundreds of little Win32 applets that he's written for.
Yeah, he wrote a Whois for Windows. That's really funny.
Also, the names are all such delightful. Like,
is this a portmanteau or a mandra
yes, green? RTMP dump helper.
Yeah, like a dump helper.
Web video cap. Who is this domain?
Site shotter.
Yes.
Take a screenshot of a website.
Reg file export. These are all one word.
Does site shotter?
File types man. Shortcuts man.
Wow.
Win lister.
This guy's great. Bullet pass view. Like, review the passwords behind asterisks.
Like, this guy has made a career out of creating unitaskers, I think is what you would say here, because every single, there are dozens, if not hundreds of applications on this guy's site, and every single one of them does exactly one thing.
There's more also.
There's a ton.
We recommended this guy's apps in like Maximum PC days years ago.
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like I remember going back to like Windows 2000 using some of this guy's stuff, but I don't remember what exactly. Also, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of that list, or actually maybe it's not all the way at the bottom, there's a way to generate he wrote an app that lets you generate blue screens.
Oh, right.
I'm trying to find it.
It's
start blue screen.
I've used the mini dump viewer that he made before.
This utility, just as it sounds, allows you to crash the Windows operating system by initiating a blue screen of death according to 5 parameters that you specify from the command line.
Oh yeah,
this guy's great.
His name's Nir Sofer, which is sounds like a Star Wars villain.
Yes, but the company name obviously is a play on his name. Anyway, Sound Volume View is great for just giving you like this big fat visual list of all the sound stuff going on that you can kind of control very easily, from just right clicking stuff and so forth. But the reason I got it is that it also has a command line interface.
Oh, so you could change audio interfaces from command line?
Yes. Even more than that. It's even more granular than that. Like, do you know how you have line in, like recording devices in Windows that you can toggle the monitor setting? I think they call it like listen to this device.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like, you can even automate stuff like that. Like
that setting's bad though. You shouldn't use that setting.
Well, sometimes you need to hear what's coming in though.
I guess.
Even just for monitoring purposes and stuff. But
man, that's all. That means I can. So are those audio interface names static enough that I could make a command line tool that sets?
Well, you mean that reads the names automatically?
No, that just automatically when the audio, because like every time Windows updates on my streaming PC, it fucks up which audio is the primary.
Yeah.
And I have to reset it all. So if I could have a little command line tool that I just double click and it makes that stuff back to what it should be, that would be amazing.
You can absolutely do that. I do that. So you can change what the active device is. You can change whether it's monitoring or not, all that kind of stuff.
That is exceptional.
And so basically you would just set up shortcuts for those if you want. Like that's probably the way, or unless, can you think of a better way to do that?
I would probably make a command line batch file that I SSH into from my iOS shortcuts and just hit a button on my phone.
Ooh, that's actually not the worst idea. There are a lot of ways to automate this. I've used Task Scheduler to automate some of these.
Yeah, I can see that. Or like a cron. Well, there's no cron on Windows, I guess, but.
Or is there?
Wait, what?
We'll get into
Hold
that.
on. Just one more thing on the Nearsoft. Near Sofer, I made a joke about his name, which was crappy of me. I feel like a large number of Star Wars aliens could probably just have Dutch names that George Lucas stole in the 90s and 80s and 70s.
They definitely follow a 1-syllable, 2-syllable format.
Yes.
In a lot of cases.
Yes.
The Han Solo rule.
Or Boba Fett, 2-syllable, 1-syllable. That goes both ways.
Yeah. But yeah, obviously Voicemeeter is a lot more capable and does a lot more things, but if you are working in some kind of streaming or audio production setup, this sound volume view can be extremely handy.
Like being able to one click, because a large part of the problem is I often don't remember what the defaults are supposed to be, because it fucks up every 6 months. So I always have to go back and look and figure it out. And if I could just have one tool that just automatically does both the input and output to what they're supposed to be, that would be beautiful.
It's also super handy for like, let's say I'm streaming the Mister and I've got my monitor switched to the Mister, because I'm playing straight off that HDMI input, so I can't see my desktop. But if I've made a shortcut, which I have, for muting and unmuting the line in from the Mister, I can hit Window key, type the name of that shortcut, and hit enter even without being able to see the desktop, and it'll like mute, unmute.
You could use a Stream Deck for that too if you have one of those.
Obviously there are other ways to automate that, but the point is it's an interface directly to that Windows audio subsystem awesome. Without having to click through all the ridiculous layers of Windows menus.
That is,
it's super, super handy.
I am installing this as soon as this podcast is done.
I feel like now this episode is a success because we have each brought at least one thing that the other person got excited about installing.
Oh yeah. Do you want to talk about? Well, hold on. We were going to talk about cron stuff.
Yeah, I mentioned it. I think on when was it? One of the Patreon episodes. So
could have been. We've talked about it ever so briefly, but
very briefly. Speaking of, I love automating stuff, man. I can't get enough of it. Task Scheduler sucks ass.
Did you ever have to have the conversation with Dave at Whiskey Media about what it was worth automating stuff?
No. What is his? I'm sure if I had to guess, I would bet he has an iconoclastic view on that subject.
Well, back then, the podcast interface required doing a lot of math and converting like the number of hours and minutes and seconds into seconds and then doing some other stuff to like make the metadata right for the podcast. And I was like, Dave, this is a thing that should take like an hour to script. And he's like, yeah, realistically, it'd probably take 3 because like, I got to test stuff and then deploy and it'll probably break something and you got to deploy it again. So like, how long does it take you every week? I was like, I don't know, a couple minutes. He's like, yeah, we're not going to automate that. You can just do the math. So I applied that to a lot of things that I don't like doing, but only take a minute or two. And there's also an XKCD about this as well. This very same topic.
I have had that mental exercise play out countless times. Mm-hmm. I'm with you
for your own personal edification, though. You can break the rules.
Yes, that's where that whole calculation breaks down for me. Is the question you always ask yourself, will I spend more time automating this than I will just doing it?
Yes.
But if I'm learning something that's going to be a permanent addition to my skill set by undergoing the automation, then it's worth it.
Or just recreationally automating things. That's fine too.
It's also just satisfying to do stuff like that. Yeah. Anyway, have you ever used Task Scheduler? It's been built into Windows since God knows how long, at least 2000 probably, or XP, if not earlier.
I've definitely used it. I found it to be bad to not working.
It's extraordinarily unreliable.
That was,
It works sometimes, and then other times it doesn't, and you get no feedback about why.
And like, it was goofy in that if a task was scheduled to run while the computer was off, it wouldn't run that task when the computer turns back on.
Yes.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, hey, I'm here to tell you the Chronicle has a setting for exactly that.
Wow.
It has a setting that says, should this run tasks that were missed while the computer was off? Yes or no?
I I feel like there should be a thing about Mr. Pibb and red vines in here too, but I don't. Huh.
Is it basically, if you are familiar with cron on Unix systems and you want that in Windows, you should get Chronicle because it is that.
So
it's .NET based, but it works practically like the config file is even laid out basically the same.
I think you're about to yell at me, but I don't know how to use cron.
Oh, it's so useful.
I
use it for all kinds of stuff.
I have literally no doubt of that, but my knowledge of how to use cron is basically anytime I need to do something in the cron tab on my BSD machine or a Linux machine, I Google a bunch of stuff and then work on it until it works and then close that file and never think about it again.
I'm with you. But you do that enough times and at some point you have that light bulb moment of like, oh, wait, I don't have to look this up anymore. Now I just know how to do it.
Nope.
I mean, it takes a lot of repetition, to be fair.
I need to automate that repetition somehow. So what do you use this for on Windows machines?
Right now, I'm only using it for, I talked about this on the Patron app. I found a command line way to change, the light dark theme in Windows, the app theme.
Oh, yeah.
So not night light. I think the night light is what they call it, which is the orange shift.
Yeah.
Color temperature thing. It's not that. It's literally like, what color is my control panel? Like, what color are File Explorer windows, right? Are they white or black? Like, it's that setting. And I just wanted to automate that. So I know I found a way to change that registry value from a PowerShell window. And then I was like, oh, I could just time this with when my nightlight comes on every night. And so I have, because I like the white theme just because it's what I'm used to from 30 years of Windows almost. But it's nice to have it automatically flip to the dark mode at night.
I'm realizing that I really want a tool. I might have to learn how to do this. I want a tool that watches my Twitch stream and knows when it's on, so it turns all that night shift stuff off. Because it turns out if you stream with Flux on, people get really upset for kind of obvious reasons.
Does it pick that up? I guess it would.
Yeah, it totally picks it up. Because that will capture. If you're doing OBS, it may not. But if you're doing, since I pipe out HDMI to another computer, it definitely, like, what I see on the screen is what people see on the screen.
Trying to think how you would do that.
So you would just have a tool that runs in the background always.
Well, so you could definitely use this to like have it. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of resource overhead on this. You could have it check like every minute or every 5 minutes.
Yeah, so that then when the stream's over, it just gradually chunks me down over like a 3 minute period. Like
if you could find some like command line tool that would like tell you if your stream is running or not. I'm trying to think how you would do that.
Well, you could do that with Twitch API. That's okay. Easy to do.
Yeah, if you have some way to check the API.
Yeah,
you could just have it check like every minute or 2 minutes for that. Anyway, like it's CRONICAL. It's command line based. You have to edit a text config file if you're not comfortable doing stuff like that. Then you will not like this.
I had to Google Chronicle for Windows, and then it came. It's on GitHub.
I think yes, it is on GitHub. I think there are a couple other products with very similar, if not identical, names. So you might have a little bit of a hard time finding it.
Yeah, the Cal.
It is just a process scheduler. That's all it is. If you're not familiar with cron in general, it's like you literally just set up conditions for, do this every Monday at midnight, or do this every 5 minutes, or you can set up slightly more complicated conditions of like if it's the second Thursday in the month, do this at 10 a.m. or whatever.
But also you can do it. You can set it to do things like ping an outside network and log whether that worked or not. If you're having like ISP problems and stuff like that, you can do all sorts of weird stuff with cron tabs.
It's a super useful scheduler, and because the built-in scheduler in Windows is terrible, I find it to be pretty useful.
I got a couple of small ones here.
Okay.
I've got Veracrypt, which is the successor kind of to TrueCrypt, I guess.
Okay.
It's TrueCrypt, so it's an encryption tool. It lets you basically you can encrypt an entire drive, or you can encrypt just a big file that you say, hey, I want 10 gigs of super duper encrypted data that you put on a thumb drive or something like that.
Okay. Or on your main, like as a kind of a virtual drive on your main system. So
I don't think you can do your
VHD kind of thing.
So yeah, any of the encrypted files show up as a virtual drive. So like you bind it to Z or X or whatever,
right?
File letter you want. And it does their whole point. It's an open source thing. They do whatever the industry standard encryption is at any given moment. So it's like 256-bit AES or something, I think. And it's a good place to put, say, for example, if you have all of your recovery codes for all of your online services that have two-factor enabled in one folder someplace, you can encrypt them and then chuck them in Dropbox or put them on a thumb drive or something like that. And then if you leave your thumb drive at medieval times, then people won't find out what's on it and get access to your Facebook and Google account.
Yes. How does it handle decryption and authentication and stuff? Just passphrase or?
There's a bazillion ways. I don't, it's funny. I don't know. I have it up. So this is one of those ones that doesn't update automatically. So I don't know if they've supported hardware keys yet, because I haven't updated in probably 2 years, which I realize now is probably a problem. But yeah, like it's passphrases is what I use usually. Okay. Let's see. Let me make a new one and see what the options are. Create volume. You can create an encrypted file container. You can encrypt a non-system partition or drive, or you can encrypt the system partition or entire system drive. That's obviously don't encrypt your system partition without really thinking about it, because you'll cause a problem for yourself.
Like I should mention right now that my experiences with FreeNAS have kind of spooked me on drive encryption.
Yeah,
like
you can really hose yourself.
I had just enough near misses where it seemed like my storage pool wasn't going to decrypt for some reason that I was like, I'm going to stop encrypting anything because it's just not worth the stress.
It's better to, I think, unless you have specific needs, like you work for a company that requires whole drive encryption, or you work in an industry where that's important, or you do like healthcare stuff and you need HIPAA certification, or I don't know anything about that shit.
Yeah.
There are reasons that people need to encrypt their drives. I get it. If you're a normal ass human who does normal ass work and you have it like literally I have 2 folders of shit on my computer that should be encrypted and the rest of it is like, who fucking cares?
Yeah.
Like the point of this is if somebody breaks into your house and steals your computer, they won't get the keys to your digital life as well as your hardware, right?
Yeah. So going back to the before times, I think it was the first security episode we did where we talked about fire safes and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, like most things, it's hard to get a fire safe right now, but I'm still intending eventually to do that.
Yeah.
And put a USB stick in there with like you said, all the recovery keys and stuff.
I have a USB stick and I actually thought about putting paper in there for a couple of like some of the real key ones, but I kind of chickened out at the last minute and I just put a USB stick that has a Veracrypt encrypted volume that has all of the codes on it, and I made the password easy enough that I can remember.
Right. So like that's what I was gonna say. Like that is a perfect candidate for this, right?
Yeah.
Like I've just been amassing recovery codes for all of the services I use, and like that should be encrypted, right?
Well, and it's interesting because the other thing that I realized when we signed up, so Gina, after I guess around the time we did that security episode, Gina finally signed up for 1Password after me asking her to do it for the better part of a decade, and we switched to a family account. And with the family account, there's a methodology for like her to get access to my password vault or her to get me to get access to her password vault. You can't do it silently. Like I can't just log in and see her passwords. Like if I do that, then it notifies her and she gets a notification, and there's like a process for that. But it means that if something happens to me, then she doesn't have to try to figure out how to get into my password vault if I didn't tell her how. Which is really good.
Yes. You need some fail safes.
Well, I mean, it's funny when we did that episode, we got emails from a couple of readers or listeners who were who literally had a family member die and they had to figure out how to get into their password manager. And if you don't have some sort of contingency for that, or it's not built into the service, then you have it's a problem.
Yes.
Because encryption doesn't care what the judge says, the executor says.
That's not a time that you want to be having to fiddle with stuff like that.
Exactly. I was gonna say the other one I use is Malwarebytes, the other little one. There's a free version of Malwarebytes. Basically, it is it's maybe not the best because for your main antivirus / malware protection, but it's a really good sanity check on top of the Windows version or whatever free thing you use.
Do you like Windows Defender? Like my impression, and this is just kind of hearsay, but is that it's gotten pretty good. The
feeling I have, and this is based on listening to people who know more about this than me, is that it's good enough for most people.
Okay.
And like it doesn't have a lot of the baggage that the heavier solutions have. You know, it's not developed in Russia.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kaspersky. It's not super heavy. It does a pretty good job, and it's integrated well into Windows. And so Malwarebytes gives you another layer of, if you're worried that something's on your computer, you can run that manually or set a cron tab probably to run it, you know, every couple of weeks, once a month, that will let you know that, hey, yeah, you're clean. So
since you mentioned the cron tab again, I just want to say I wish every single application had a command line interface at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Just an optional one. You don't have to expose it. It could just be buried in the README or whatever, but just let me do stuff from the command line so I can automate everything.
It was one of the things that was really nice about OS 10 when I switched to that in the last decade, decade before last now, I guess.
Yeah. So does Malwarebytes do anything substantively different from other antivirus, or is it just another one?
It's more, my understanding is more that they're good at scanning in a way, like they're good at real-time stuff, I'm sure, but the free version is really good if you're worried that you're compromised to go through and do a sanity check.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't know.
You got anything else you want to talk about?
Probably all I want to get. Well, do you have I guess I should ask real fast. Do you have a like a kind of, I'm trying to think. Like I don't think code editor is quite what I'm looking for here, but like a better than Notepad text editing solution.
Do you use Notepad 2 or Notepad++?
I have got Notepad++ at the moment, which is not bad. There are a couple things I wish were better about it, but like I've gotten to the point where I need something that is monospace, but also tells me like line numbers and like has sensible word wrap options and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know, for editing that fake cron tab and stuff like that.
And also it's nice when you open up like a config file that's on your BSD machine or on a Raspberry Pi or something.
Yes, it is very useful for, like, Notepad is terrible. Like the straight up stock Windows Notepad is useless for stuff like that. Well,
and not only because you don't have the formatting stuff that you need, but also you don't have it adds line end stuff.
It uses the Windows or the DOS version of line ends that Unix machines don't like. Also, it just chokes on files that are bigger than a few megabytes.
Yeah.
So if you have a gigantic log file that came out of something that was stuck in some kind of loop and you need to see what was going on, Notepad is not going to work.
Oh man, I forgot about FileBot. We should have talked about that. So I usually use either Notepad 2 or Notepad++.
I never heard of Notepad 2.
I'm looking to see Notepad 2 you can find on Flo's freeware.
Okay.
No, I have Notepad++ installed right now, so that must be the one I like right now.
That's what I'm using. It seems fine. I think a lot of people use it.
It's not, it's no Emacs.
Like, no, what is? I mean, I don't think you're going to code in it. I think people will use VS Code and stuff like that for actual development. But like for parsing big ass text files, it seems pretty good. I still haven't found a theme I like though.
It does. TextPad is another one that people like. I've never used it.
I remember that name.
But Notepad++ does do context. Like it can highlight syntax and stuff like that.
Yes, it does have
which is nice.
Pretty good syntax highlighting.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel
I'll probably stick with that one unless somebody writes in with something better.
Yeah, this is firmly in the realm of this has been good enough for me. So
yeah, that's probably what I'll stick with. Yet another reason I need to get acquainted with stuff like that. I've been messing with the new Windows Terminal, which finally came out of preview.
Oh, the Linux subsystem thing? Or something else?
This is kind of a wrapper for all the various terminals that you would use in Windows. So like
PowerShell and
cmd.exe, which is the old like straight up DOS prompt replacement, PowerShell, Windows subsystem for Linux, like any of that stuff.
Oh, neat.
It's basically a shell. It's like
can you open a tab that has one of the shells in it?
Yes, it is a tab. It is a tab-based kind of single window solution for all the different shells you would use in Windows.
Wow.
And it seems super robust in all the ways you can configure it, except that you have to configure it in a JSON file. Like there is no graphical configuration whatsoever. You click settings and it literally pops the JSON file in whatever your text editor is. So and you need text editors for stuff like that these days. Like I love it personally. Like any developer is going to be used to stuff like that. So it's not a problem, but it is kind of interesting to see like Microsoft of all companies pushing apps out that you have to configure in a text application.
It's a
text file,
weird,
a configuration
it's an
file.
interesting choice because it kind of automatically gates the people who use that tool
Right.
to the people who need that tool.
Right. Totally. Which it's kind of weird, right?
Honestly, I've gotten really excited about that Windows subsystem for Linux stuff hitting.
Yeah.
If for no other reason than so I can finally get rid of PuTTY.
Okay.
I hate PuTTY.
PuTTY's not that bad. I don't use it actively, but PuTTY's okay. I use it for serial console stuff.
So I have problem PuTTY. The problem with PuTTY is that it doesn't just load the last connection you saved automatically. So often I overwrite my save because I have like the wrong thing selected in the menu and then hit load or hit save, and it just replaces the shortcut that I had before. Well, so then I have to go dig out my SSH keys again and set them back up, and it has a terrible UI.
A lot of people seem to not know this because I don't think it was well publicized, but Windows has a built-in SSH client now. It's just ssh.exe. It's just a port of OpenSSH, I think.
Where do you put your keys and stuff?
In .ssh in your home folder. Like,
fuck me.
Like Windows is getting more Unixy, and I love it. Like that's just how it works in Linux and BSD, right? You have a .ssh directory in your home directory, and you do that here too. It works exactly like so. Your private keys and everything go in there.
So I can just open up this terminal window and bust out a command line.
Literally open command prompt in Windows, type SSH just like you would in Unix, and it just works. That new terminal that I'm talking about, it's profile based. The configuration, you can set up different profiles that say like, open this shell with this command with these font settings and blah, blah, blah. You can literally just set up keyboard shortcuts to say like, here is an SSH to my Mister, here's an SSH to my NAS, stuff like that. So,
wow.
But again, you're gonna have to like figure out JSON formatting and like how to set up all the stuff like that. It's a rabbit hole.
JSON's pretty straightforward. Like it's not scary. It's not.
No, I've just never done it before.
It's like extra XML.
Yes,
like,
having to learn specific syntax for just to configure something is kind of a pain in the ass. But I'm not a developer.
Yeah, there you go.
So
yeah, that's it. I guess that's it for me.
Yeah, that's some stuff.
I would love to hear the things like again, it's kind of an amorphous definition of tool, but it's like tech unit taskers kind of is the way I think of them.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear people's favorites. Either I was going to say in the comments, but we don't do that. Yeah. You can send an email to techpod@content.town or hit us on Twitter at sweatpantstechpod, sweatpantstech on Twitter. Yeah, that's it. Like that. There's no pod. Or post in the Discord in this week's episode if you're in there. And as always, I would like to thank our patrons. We would like to thank our patrons. Sorry, Brad. We have a fabulous group of 758 people now are backing the pod. Thank you all so much.
Yes, absolutely.
But extra special thanks to our executive producer level patrons. Andrew Cotton, David Allen, and Jacob Chappell.
You can't see it, but I'm wincing right now.
Why?
Patrons. I thought we've been over this, man.
Look, man, it's early. Okay, I'm tired.
That's fair. We both got bedhead.
Here's the problem. Look, I drink coffee some days and I drink tea other days, and on the tea days, I don't get enough caffeine fast enough to
Why not both?
Well, I'll go make a cup of coffee after this, but the tea hasn't cut it so far. But yeah, thanks to our executive level producers and all 758 of you wonderful nerds who back the Patreon the Patreon every month. Yes. And Brad, I added another new channel to the Discord.
I saw that. I wasn't expecting that.
Look, I didn't feel good about it. I'm going to go ahead and say
I'm not here to judge.
They were talking about sports.
We're not
in the general chat.
We are not the kind of nerds that look down on an appreciation of sports.
No, we're inclusive nerds. This is an inclusive group of people.
We're not sports ball hand to egg types over here.
Yeah, no, but somebody said, it would be nice if we had a place to put the sports chat so I didn't have to look at it in the general channel. And
that's a good reason.
I was like, that's a good reason. Yeah. I think that was actually Chapel, but I don't remember for sure. Anyway, thank you to all the patrons. Thanks to everybody who listens every week. If you don't support the Patreon, that's great. That's fine. We're good. Definitely tell your friends about the podcast. Write an iTunes review. Yeah. I go through those every couple of weeks, and they're usually really funny because people are post weird iTunes reviews on podcasts that we do, apparently, which is good.
I'll take a funny user review.
Yeah, and yeah, we keep. If you like the show, if you don't like the show, let us know. We'd love to hear what you think. So feedback is always welcome. My feedback is that I'm kind of disappointed with the lack of sign off catchphrases that we got. The best one I thought we got.
Yeah.
See y'all next week. Put some cheese on it.
That's okay.
No,
I
don't forget to put some cheese on it.
I'm going to tell you what my idea was because I'm not going to follow through on it because it's terrible.
Let's have it. Let's hear it.
I looked up the Hayes modem command set.
Oh yeah.
And I tried to figure out what the command string was for hang up the modem.
Oh, it's like AT10 or something, right?
I think it's ATH. That's my sign off catchphrase. ATH.
ATH. Well, somebody did suggest that we end the episode with like us trying to make modem noises with our mouths.
Oh yeah, which
I think is a much better way to start the show.
I should just. Or do you think there are royalty free, license free samples of modem stuff out there?
You want some modem? I can get you some modem samples by 3:00 today.
I will happily start ending this show with a modem sound.
I gotta say, did you ever, when you had a modem? I used to be able to whistle. Wow. I used to be able to whistle the first part of the pickup so that the modem would pick up when somebody would fax me.
That's really impressive.
And then the fax machine would keep beeping and trying to send messages, and it wouldn't go.
I think we've got our sign off now.
Yeah.
That's like the 80s version of saying Xbox on into a podcast mic and having it turn somebody's Xbox on.
Hey Siri.
Yeah, right.
Okay, Google.
All right.
Alexa, what's the weather? Oh, God damn it.
So you've done it to yourself. All right, we have to stop this.
Bye, everybody.